Hello, I'm Dr. Jay Noreen, and welcome to our first Health Talk program. Our health has historically been left to our doctors. Basically, they told us what we had to do, and we obediently did it, or sometimes we didn't. But it's different today. We all know that our health care has become a partnership between patient and physician. Our weekly visits on Health Talk are meant to prepare you for what your part of that partnership really needs to be. Our guest today is Dr. David Nieman. He's professor of health and exercise science and director of App State's Human Performance Lab at the North Carolina Research Campus in Kannapolis. David, would you tell us about, I know what you've done in nutrition and exercise science and impact on health. Can you give us a sense of what is a pretty remarkable set of research activities?
Yeah, sure. So back in the 1980s, I was a marathon runner and was very interested in the impact of heavy exertion on the immune system. I experienced it in myself and saw it in others that they tended to get sick after running marathons. Mm-hmm. And so at that time, there was a very famous immunologist at Loma Linda University where I was attending, and her name was Sandra Nielsen Cantarella. She was the immunologist that helped to transplant the baboon heart in baby Faye. Do you remember that?
Yes,
way back in
I do.
1984. Yeah. So she was a high-powered immunologist who felt that exercise and mental stress both had effects on the immune system, but at that time there was very little information. So we teamed up together and we went through a whole series of studies. And in brief, what we showed is that if you exercise on a regular basis, 30, 45 minutes on most days of the week, we showed a positive effect on the function of the immune system and a 40 to 50% reduction in the number of days that people were sick with a common cold. On the other hand, when people ran marathons, we showed that the risk of illness went up sixfold, and there was a downturn in several important parts of the immune system. It was transient, but it would stay down for up to a day, making the athletes sick. Mm-hmm. So much of the research that I've been doing lately has been to discover nutritional countermeasures to help the marathon athlete, the war fighter, other cyclists, other athletes who exercise heavily and experience that downturn. Is there something that they can take that will protect their immune system during that time?
Okay, so for a high-performance athlete, there seems to be almost an opposite effect. They have, from their exercise, they have a downturn. Their immune system gets somewhat suppressed.
It's too much of a good thing. We have found that somewhere around 90 minutes, and most people never go beyond 90 minutes, but if you run right around 90 minutes, the exercise turns into a stressor, and cortisol goes up, epinephrine goes up, and that causes the downturn in immune.
And cortisol, that's a substance that's secreted by a gland, and it has to do with stress and things. But let me put it in another way. So now, I'm not obviously a high-performance athlete, and most of us are not. We don't run 90 minutes. We might run 15 or whatever it is. So, but I've understood that moderate exercise actually helps your immune system. Is that wrong, or is that right?
Yeah, what we showed with Sandra Nielsen Cantarella is that every time you exercise, important parts of the upfront part of the immune system start to circulate through the body at a higher rate than normal. Mm-hmm. Neutrophils, natural killer cells, and macrophages.
Those are the substances that help you fight disease, bacteria, whatever it happens to be.
As we speak, up front right now, and exercise helps that part of the immune system do its job better.
Better if it's moderate exercise.
If it's moderate, and it
like most of us do.
That's right, and it only lasts during the walk and for about 3 hours after, and then those immune cells go right back to where they came from.
Back to normal base.
That's right. And then if you go out again, then you improve the surveillance of those cells in the body against viruses, and then it goes back down to normal. And so it's near daily activity keeps the function of the
Okay.
immune system
Well,
at
that's
a higher level.
That's a really important point because, you know I don't exercise every day. I wish I did. But what you're saying is regular exercise is a key part of this because it helps your immune system if you do it regularly. You're better off, tell me if I'm wrong about this. You're better off exercising every day for whatever length of time, not too long because that's hard on you, than you are like every 5 days more, because more moderate exercise more regularly is better for you. Is that
Yes.
right?
The frequency is important, and we showed it somewhere around 30, 45 minutes of brisk walking about 5 days a week is the optimal amount of activity to help the immune system do its job better. The immune system actually needs the brisk walking or swimming or cycling to do its job. Many people don't understand that the immune system has to have muscular contraction in order for the cells to start circulating to do its job better.
So these substances that help the immune system, the elements that are the immune system, something about muscle activity helps increase those?
Yes, there's an
Interesting.
increase in blood flow. There's and many of the neutrophils, which are the important cells up front, it's 2/3 of the cells of the immune system are neutrophils. A lot of them are kind of sticking to the capillaries, to the blood vessels, and the exercise gets them non-sticky, gets them out.
Gets them operating
Yeah,
in
it's
the
just
body.
like, I tell people it's like the Marine Corps. If they're in the foxholes, fine, but if something gets the Marine Corps out, circulating around, they're more likely to contact the enemy and deal with them. Immune system is the same way. You have to get the cells out moving around.
So what's interesting to me is that you usually think, at least I do and a lot of people, if you do exercise, it helps make your muscles stronger, you're not likely to get hurt as much, and it helps you with your weight control. But this is way beyond that. This actually helps the system by which the body fights off disease by moderate exercise.
Yeah, in fact, there's growing research that it's not only beneficial against the common cold, but several types of cancer are benefited by the response of the immune system to exercise.
Interesting.
Also, as you know, the plaque in coronary blood vessels is an immune response. And there's growing awareness that the immune response to exercise is important in countering the plaque that causes heart disease.
And the plaque is the hardening of the arteries. It's what you call the stuff that coats the arteries and makes them hard and causes you to have a heart attack or sometimes a stroke. But you're saying that moderate exercise, not just because it's good for your muscles and your blood vessels, but it's because the immune system is activated, and that helps reduce the hardening part of the arteries.
That's exactly right.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I feel that exercise is like medicine, and the avenue through which many of the benefits come is in part due to the activation of the immune system.
Now, at what point in time would you say you're doing too much exercise? How far do you go before you say, now it's a little much too much? What's kind of the range for the average person?
Yeah, and we showed in the lab that is right around that 90-minute threshold.
Okay,
What
90
happens,
minutes in an episode.
Yes,
Yeah,
so it's
okay.
like you're running a marathon. Right around 90 minutes, the glycogen is getting pretty low in the muscles.
That's fascinating.
And then the hormones come out, and the immune system goes down. And then if you've been exposed to a virus, you're going to get sick.
All right. Good. Thank you. We're going to take a look at a video and want you to kind of describe some of the things that are on the video that have to do with the activities you're involved in and the location.
Okay. Flow cytometer lab that we use in much of the research, and this is the NMR lab, where we can take a sports beverage or any drink and get it analyzed at the molecular level. This is a cell culture lab in the immune lab in the David H. Murdoch Research Institute, where we take a lot of our samples for immune analysis. And this is a subject actually in a study we're doing right now. We're doing a study with LicoRed, looking at tomato carotenoids and their ability to protect the immune system of athletes during heavy exertion. And here we're doing an ultrasound scan. We were the first team to show that you can use ultrascans to actually predict the loss of glycogen in the muscle. And glycogen is the key to heavy exertion. So here's another subject in that same study. We're having these guys go 2 hours at this race pace to produce a downturn in their immune function, and then seeing if tomato carotenoids taken for 2 weeks before that will help them.
That's very interesting. Now, I don't know a lot about that big campus. I know the history of the big North Carolina Research Campus. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that operates and a little bit more about your activity there?
Right, so it was dedicated in 2008, and David H. Murdoch, who is the billionaire owner of Dole Foods, he decided that his legacy would be pouring much of his wealth into building a research campus. But different than the research triangle, where there's more of a pharma approach, he wanted this campus to have more of a lifestyle and especially a nutrition focus. He wants it to be the top nutrition research center in the whole world. And I think we're off to a good start. So what he did is he built the buildings, built the labs. It's like the Field of Dreams, where he basically built the buildings and these wonderful labs stocked with all the latest equipment, and then invited universities to come and ask the state to finance faculty and staff coming from 8 different universities. So we're all there working together on nutrition-related type research. And the type of research that App State is able to do there has just been tremendous. I had a great research group here, and then in 2008, Mr. Murdoch asked App State to have my research group go down there, and we started the Human Performance Lab that we just saw there in the video.
Oh, wow. So you got access to fantastic equipment by virtue of going to the North Carolina Research Campus.
That's right.
And so what we were seeing earlier on the video was some of the aspects of the Human Performance Lab.
Yeah.
And you've been there for, you said, since 2008?
Yes.
Okay, so can you tell a little more about the kind of things you do in the lab? I mean, I know it's really interesting, and I know there's a big exercise science group at App State, but now your part of it is down there. Can you talk a little more about the kind of things you're doing there?
Yeah, so I'll give you just one example. So what we showed in a series of studies at the Western States 100-mile race is that the #1 drug that athletes use is ibuprofen. And it's also the #1 drug that the warfighters use in the military. But we showed at the same time that ibuprofen causes disruption in the lining cells of the colon. And during exercise, it allows bacteria to come out of the colon into the blood, and you as an MD know that that's called endotoxemia.
Yeah, right.
And that causes excessive inflammation, oxidative stress, and kidney dysfunction. It's all kind of mild, it's not major, but it's not helping the athlete. And so we have been on a kind of a mission to come up with some substitute for this drug. And the military is interested in that, and we are. So one example of something we've been looking at is this product. So this is called Nutrizorb. And in Rutgers, they discovered that you can take protein from soy, pour blueberry juice into it, and then the soy protein will absorb all of the beneficial polyphenols. Now, polyphenols are the purples and the blues and the reds and the greens that are in fruits and vegetables. These have anti-inflammatory properties. So what Rutgers did is they made it into a powder. This is a protein powder with blueberry polyphenols. Right here you have all the polyphenols that you would find in 1.5 cups of fresh blueberries.
So let me ask you this then. Does this relate to what we have been learning more and more about the importance of fruits and vegetables as well as part of our diet, the 3 to 5 fruits and vegetables a day? Is that associated in some way?
So we know that people that eat a lot of fruits and vegetables have a 30% reduction in overall mortality during their lifspan. And that it's these polyphenols that are the protective parts.
And it's in the gut, it's in the GI tract where that, and so, but you've learned that because of, in high performance athletes, you have the other side effect. It's kind of like not excess, but high performance exercise causes some negative effects, whereas moderate exercise is less, and it has the same kind of relationship to this nutritional factor.
Right. So what we think is that this can take the place of ibuprofen for the athlete, because what we showed is that when athletes take something like this, a lot of blueberry polyphenols, that then during exercise, the gut releases more of that back into the body to help the athlete protect themselves against the oxidative stress and inflammation that they experience during that run.
Now, translate that now into the non-high performance athlete. What does that mean for me and others who aren't high performance athletes?
We have just submitted an NIH grant to now study brisk walkers. We feel that when people on high fruit vegetable diets go on a brisk walk, that the walking will stimulate the gut to release more of the polyphenols back into the body.
Okay.
And so we call it getting more bang for your blueberry.
So if you weren't eating all the fruit, you'd still have a benefit from the moderate walk.
That's
but if
right.
you're eating fruits and vegetables, it increases the benefit.
We think it's a synergism.
So you want to both exercise and eat fruits and vegetables.
That's
to,
exactly
to
right.
increase your
And all
health.
the leading studies show that when you do those things, that you have a reduction in heart disease, reduction in cancer, diabetes is reduced, obesity is reduced. And we think one of the keys is that the exercise stimulates the gut to release more of the fruit polyphenols.
Interesting, interesting. Now, how does this information get out to the public and affect behavior? That's one of the questions I think.
Right. So at the North Carolina Research Campus, all of the funding that App State has received since we've been there, so we've been there 7 years, we have just signed a contract, so we are now up to $4 million of research funding since we've been there. All of that has come through companies. And in the UNC system, the university system, we have these companies sign an academic freedom contract. They have to agree that when we study their products, that we have the freedom to publish the data.
Yes.
Now these companies, of course, they're hoping for positive results.
Sure.
And then if there are positive results, then we publish, and the media often will pick it up, and then they gain their biggest benefit when the media picks up the story.
But even more importantly, the general public gains their biggest benefit because they learn about these things.
That's exactly how it happens.
And I would guess, I mean, I didn't know all of this detail, particularly about the substitutes for drugs like ibuprofen. Hopefully that's going to become more and more well known in the public.
Yes, and see, what bothers us at the North Carolina Research Campus is there's a lot of nonsense out there. There's things that really don't work that are being pushed. We're down there trying to discover the truth about what works and then get that message out.
Which is sort of the main model of the North Carolina Research
Exactly.
Campus to begin
Yeah,
with. Now, one of the other things that I've heard about is that you've learned some things, and it got a lot of attention about pistachios. What is that all about?
Yeah, so this is an example. So we had athletes eat about this amount, is 3 ounces a day for 2 weeks. And the American Pistachio Growers funded the study. And it was their desire to position pistachios as a fitness food. So we then had the athletes come in after 2 weeks of taking the pistachios, and they cycled 75 kilometers. It takes 2 hours and 40 minutes to do that, roughly. And what happened in pistachios, these are very healthy for general health, but what we found is that there's a special fiber in pistachio called raffinose. It's a trisaccharide that our intestines cannot break down.
Okay.
It goes to the colon, and then the bacteria start to break it down, and then during exercise, the gut got hot, and this came out of the gut and decreased performance because the immune system wasn't used to seeing that and created a leukotoxin that decreased the ability of the muscles to contract.
Now,
So,
is this most relevant for high-performance athlete, not the
yes.
average person?
Yeah, the average person eat pistachios,
All you
walk,
want. All
no
you want.
problem.
Yeah.
But if you're a marathon runner, we're
Yeah.
saying do not eat
Avoid
pistachios.
pistachios when you're going to run.
That's
when
right.
you're going to have a race.
That's exactly right.
But it doesn't,
Yeah.
I mean, I can still eat pistachios, no problem.
They're very healthy. There's a lot of nutrients in them.
And
So-
fiber.
and
which is very
fiber,
good for,
yes, yeah.
prevents cancer, reduces cancer risk
Yeah,
and that
see,
sort of thing.
raffinose is actually a what we call a prebiotic. It actually
Yeah.
stimulates the correct type of bacteria to grow in the colon,
Yeah.
and that's great. The problem is the marathon runner, it actually causes the immune system to downregulate
Yeah,
muscle
it's
function.
that same high level, but for the rest of us,
That's right.
eat pistachios.
That's
And
exactly
I'm glad
right.
to hear that because I love pistachios.
Yes. Yeah.
Some other things about that. There's so much going on at the lab. I'd really like to hear more.
Yeah, yeah. Another thing that we just published that we're very excited about, have you heard of chia seeds?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people have heard about them because of the chia pet.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So the seed is an ancient seed that the Aztecs used to use.
Uh-huh.
And and we found it's more of a myth, but there's been certain companies that have been pushing that chia seeds help the Aztec armies march to war and help the messengers run.
Interesting, yeah.
And then recently there was a book written by McDougall called Born to Run. And it was a couple of years ago. And he, in that book, claimed that the Tarahumara Indians in northern Mexico would put this in water and drink it and then could run really fast.
Ah, interesting.
And so we just finished a study looking at this. Is it true that the fat in chia seeds is what we call ergogenic, or does it promote performance? And we showed it did nothing. But see, the muscles during exercise want to use carbohydrate, and chia seeds are high in a special fat called alpha-linolenic acid, ALA. It's an omega-3 fat. And a lot of people say, well, it's an ancient seed. The Aztecs used it. The Tarahumara Indians run. And they thought that this fat would help the muscles perform better. And we showed that's not true.
Yeah,
On the other hand, we showed that bananas, if you eat a half a banana and with a cup of water every 15 minutes during running or cycling, it's just as good as Gatorade in supporting high-intensity performance.
Really?
So the carbohydrate in bananas is highly available during exercise, just as good as Gatorade, but the fat in chia seed is not what the muscles want.
So it's in bananas or Gatorade, it's the quick push from the carbohydrate that
Yes,
helps you.
that's exactly
The
right.
sugar,
Yes.
the sugar effect.
Yeah,
sort of.
and then the bananas have potassium, they
And
have
potassium
fiber.
as well, yeah.
And that package, we think it's the perfect athletic food.
Interesting.
And by the way,
Gatorade and bananas while you run.
well, water and bananas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Water and bananas
Yeah, now
while you
I
run.
would like to say we have a brand new project that we're about to start with Mr. Murdoch, which is he has 60 species of bananas in Central America.
Huh.
One of them, he says, is a sport banana. It has more sugar per volume than the regular banana. We're going to test that. So then the athlete will get more carbohydrate per
Yeah.
banana
Yeah.
than usual.
Yeah.
And we're going to start that project this fall.
Interesting. One of the other things I noticed in looking at some of the things you've been doing is you've done some work on the effect of moderate exercise in relatively young children. Tell us about that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, so we brought in 750 middle school aged youth through our lab, and we put them through body fat testing and treadmill VO2 max testing, strength testing, and anaerobic power testing. And really, to our surprise, is we found that roughly 4 out of 10 of these youth in the Charlotte area were overweight and obese.
4 out of 10.
4 out of 10, and that then the greater their degree of overweight and obesity, then the lower all of their test scores. And so those data were actually we just presented at a conference, but it's a sad commentary on what's happening with our youth today.
Yeah.
Is way too many of them are overweight, and some of them had the treadmill VO2 max of elderly individuals. They were so heavy, those
And they
kids.
were how old?
We're talking average age 13.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
So
impressive.
yeah, that was a 3-year study with 700 and some
Pretty good sized
middle school.
study.
Yeah.
And then also the obesity correlation with increased Diabetes in kids, of course,
That's
is a
right.
big deal.
That's right, and they're directly correlated.
Well, now, for those kids, what kind of moderate exercise package would you put together as a kind of a routine? Is there something that works best for kids?
Yes, and the recommendation is 1 hour a day. And I know a lot of parents throw their hands up and say 1
quite a
hour a day and less than 2 hours a day of sitting in front of the monitor.
Yeah.
And those are stiff standards, but as you know, when we were growing up,
Yeah.
that's the way it was.
Sure, that was
We're
every
always
day,
out
yeah.
there, very active.
Yeah.
We have to switch this around. They need 1 hour a day.
Yeah.
It should be play activities, fun activities, sports. I think running and swimming laps and that sort of thing, there's very few kids that like to do that.
Yeah.
For the majority of them, increase play opportunities, and I think that's the mission of all parents and families.
Wow, fascinating. Well, David, really, thank you very much for coming. I hope you'll come back.
Yes.
This is it's exciting stuff, and App State is doing amazing things down in the Human Performance Lab. I know exercise science is very strong up here too, but
Yes.
but this is great, and it sounds like you've got fantastic facilities. Wonderful. Well, you know, it's going to be hot coming up soon here in the high country, and we will be eating outdoors, and when you eat outdoors, sometimes the food stays out a little bit too long. So we have to be careful about food handling, because when it gets warm, it's dangerous. So I just want to alert you to our next health talk. We're going to be getting some very practical tips on how we're careful about our food so that we don't get foodborne illness. So we look forward to that. Thank you very much.